Hi folks, it's Savvytech here. Now, as some of you know, IceWhale have responded to a couple of users that have been having issues with thermal performance and fan noise on their ZimaCubes, and they have released a new style cooler. The original cooler that was shipped with the early units was a blower style cooler with fin array on the side, a blower style fan and dual copper heat pipes. This, whilst it was capable for the CPUs being used, certainly on the N100 model, on the Pro version of the Cube, some users were experiencing issues with thermals ramping up and the fan noise ramping up too much, basically. So what they've done is they've designed a new cooler here. This is very similar to a 2U rack mount server cooler. So we've got fan on the front and we've got a mass array of fins on the rear to get all that heat dissipated through there. Decent airflow, quite unrestricted on that side. There is also triple copper heat pipes on the back. Now, it does come pre-applied with thermal paste. As you can see, I've actually taken a little bit off of here just to double check that those copper pipes run all the way across, which they do. So, all in all, in theory, we should be running a lot cooler and a lot quieter than the original stock cooler. Now, I believe that these units are already being sent out, already fitted on the newer cubes that are being ordered currently. And obviously anyone that has had a ZimaCube already with the older style cooler, you can pop online. You should have received an email from IceWhale advising with a coupon to get the replacement cooler. If you haven't, pop an email over to shop@icewhale.org. I'll drop that in the description as well. Reach out to the team and they will be able to talk to you on a case-by-case basis and get this resolved for you. So what we're going to do is we will pop over to a different camera angle so you can see inside the cube. I'll give you a couple of tips and tricks along the way as we replace the cooler, and we're also going to replace the thermal interface between the heat spreader and the die itself, just to make sure that we get optimal cooling. Catch you in a minute. Welcome back, folks. Okay, so here we have our ZimaCube ready to have our new cooler put on. I've got a couple of tools here ready to use. Your kit will come with drivers to help installation of this, but for me, I'm just going to be using a standard Phillips driver, my Torx screwdrivers. I've got some generic thermal paste here. I used to use Noctua, but I've run out, so that will do for now. Microfiber cloth or lint-free cloth, and I've got a couple of Q-tips here as well. So what we'll do is we will just zoom on in to get a better view. So first things, like I say, what you'll want to do is use your Torx bits. I've already done it. Take the screws out of the top of the case. There's 4 screws in total. Once you've done that, you'll be able to see the inside of the ZimaCube. So there we go, so we can see better. First step, take off the fan cable, and then we're going to want to use the Phillips screwdriver to undo the screws that are holding down the original heatsink here. So let's do this very badly whilst trying to do it so you can still see. Loose, nearly, there we go. Once they're all undone, take it off, and there's your old cooler. Now obviously I have already changed these parts around, so yours will vary slightly. You will have thermal paste on the top here, which we can just wipe off with our microfiber cloth here. The one thing I will say is you need to just make sure that you keep your hands steady, just grab a bit of isopropyl alcohol here. Keep your hands steady. You don't want to go knocking other components like these capacitors, etc. as well. So we're just going to bang a bit of isopropyl alcohol on this cloth here just to make this clean up a little bit easier. Now this is the same as any standard CPU, any standard computer or cooler that you would replace on any computer. So that'll do for now. Underneath the heatsink there is 3 screws. Now this is a section that you have to choose. You can just place this straight in and replace the heatsink, or if you want extra performance, you can undo these 3 screws here. 1, 2, 3. And this will allow you to remove this thermal spreader. So the difference, which you'll see in a minute, between a standard CPU is the CPUs normally in desktop computers have built-in heat spreaders, IHS, integrated heat spreader. These ones, because they're bare die, don't have an integrated one and use this plate to spread the heat from the die into the cooler. If you want to remove this, I'd recommend running the ZimaCube to get it warm, and it should make it a little bit easier to remove this. Mine, like I say, I've replaced already. Yours potentially will have a much thicker, harder thermal interface, kind of like a thermal pad, and it tends to go a bit like chewing gum once it's been on there for a while. So once you've released those, you just want to kind of give it a little twist like that, gently, gently. Once you've worked it loose a little bit, you'll be able to lift it straight up. With that, you'll see you might have a rectangle there, and you'll have some thermal paste on there. When you're cleaning the CPU up, very careful. Obviously, it is a bare die. It's not got any other protections on. This is the actual, if I clean that off, the actual silicon that runs the computer. There aren't any other diodes on the PCB, so you can pretty much just go straight in and clean this off. So again, I'm just going to do a real quick and dirty on here, and then I'll tidy it up off camera properly. So that's that one. Actually, let's go back on with the microfiber. Now, some people may say, you know, don't use Q-tips because you'll scratch the die. Realistically, I haven't had any issues with that before, but that's what it looks like, completely cleaned. Let's try and get a decent close-up shot there. Very shiny. There we go, super shiny. Once you're at that stage, you can then get your thermal paste. Application size, obviously, everyone has an opinion. I do it my way. I've always had success with it. So I just put a small dollop on each of the dies. And I will also clean up the heat spreader here. Whilst that one's off, let's just give it a good old rubber dip, 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 dip. There we go. Still a little bit of leftovers, but yeah, a couple of dots on there. You want to remember where these 3 screws are. There are small, very small, tiny little capacitors along here, or other components. I'm not quite sure what each of them are, but they're there. Just be careful, don't hit them with your heatsink. Line up the 3 screws. 1 screw, 2 screws, 3 screws. Torque wise, just kind of slightly more than finger tight really. You don't need to proper ratchet on it, just make it reasonably tight. Excuse me dogs. And then we want to put some, this is up to you. You can either wipe this off, put your own thermal paste on, and on it goes, or you can just use the thermal paste that is already on there. Direction wise, kind of up to you really. The fan does blow this way through the cooler. It does look like it will fit both directions, so it'll fit from the rear or this way around, so you can kind of go either, totally up to you. Performance wise, looking at it, I mean, if you're using the 10 gig NIC, it may be worth blowing in this direction, so you will have air going over the cooler onto the 10 gig NIC. The only caveat is obviously there's perforations along the back, and then a plate here along the back as well, which will block airflow. The whole front of the case is open. Well, I say open, it's got a grill there. So personally, what I'm going to do is I'm going to push the air out the front of the case. So again, we'll line up the screws and start screwing. One screw. This is a lot harder doing it on camera than just randomly myself. Some of you obviously are familiar with this kind of thing, some of you aren't. So I like to do this in a cross pattern just to make sure I get even pressure across the heat spreader. It's more important to do that when you're using thermal paste rather than pre-applied paste, just because kind of manually applied paste tends to spread out a bit more than the pre-applied stuff. Again, torque-wise, kind of finger tight, slightly over. And then you'll have your 4-pin fan cable, which will attach onto this 4-pin fan header. So I'm going to try and keep my head out of the shot so you don't have to look at the back of my head. And then that just attaches on like so. That's basically the cooler changed. So all you need to do is grab your lid, pop your lid back on, and then you just want to pop your screws back in on the sides, and then you're good to go. If you've got any issues or don't feel comfortable taking off the the heat spreader, just don't. I mean, you can hop onto the Discord, have a chat with folks here. We're more than happy to help you along the way, but it is kind of your liability on that side of things. Really, the recommendation is just to remove the heat sink and then replace it with the new one. But obviously that will give you an extra, well, the extra step will give you a little bit better performance with the new thermal paste. So let's hop back out and we'll wind up. So there we go, folks. A really long-winded video of me replacing a cooler on the ZimaCube. But hopefully it's helped you guys. There will be more videos coming up. I've got another parcel here just hiding in plain sight, which is a replacement front grille, wood effect, which we're going to do a little video on replacing the front grille. It was a limited edition for backers of the Zima board, and then who have subsequently backed the ZimaCube. So I'll do a quick video of that. Again, it's pretty simple. The front plate gets replaced, the top plate gets replaced, and it looks nice. So any other issues, by all means, drop a comment, drop me a message, contact me in the Discord, and I'll catch you guys next time. Cheers.